Instructional Designers in Offices Drinking Coffee is brought to you by Domino, makers of Domino One, the cloud-based authoring tool for e-learning. Learn how your team can work together better at domino.com. Now, here's this week's episode.
It's been so long. Woo-hoo.
Oh, I should have warmed up. I've thrown my back out already, dancing so hard on a Wednesday morning.
I think I pulled a hammy.
Oh my goodness! Good morning to everybody. Good afternoon for those of you who celebrate afternoons and are joining us from some other locale where it isn't morning. Looking at those weather reports, a quarter of inch of snow in Ireland, and it's everything's ground to a halt. And someone else chimed in, that sounds like Texas. So, yeah, no kidding. It is so cool to be back again, gang, after being off for the holiday season. Happy New Year, everybody. We're almost reaching that point where it's too late to say that anymore. But
right? No, it's still good. It's our first episode. We can do it. And
it kind of feels like wearing white after Labor Day or something. There's some rule, right, that says you can't.
Down south, apparently that's a serious rule.
It's over, Chris. That's over. Outre.
Very cool. Hey, gang, guess what? We have Allison Rossett joining us here today. Allison, it's your first time here with us. So introduce yourself to the folks who've joined us for today's session.
Well, good morning. I'm coming to you from just sun rising in San Diego now. It's been raining these atmospheric rivers, but not today. Today, beautiful.
Nice.
So let's see. What can I tell you about myself? For decades, and I see lots of former students online here, so that's fun. Fun for me. I hope fun for them too. For years, I was a professor at San Diego State teaching in instructional design and technology, and did work with lots of organizations around the world, really. I was active in what was called ASTD then, very active in ISPI as well. Yeah, I'm reading the chat. Yeah, that was my book, First Things Fast, analysis book. Also a book on performance support, job aids and performance support. Another one called Beyond the Podium. You can guess what that means about. There's a technical glitch.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I don't know. Folks are saying that everything seems to be buffering for them. So that's a very odd thing.
That is weird. I was having so much fun with it.
No kidding.
I don't know.
So many folks. Now it is back. It's back now. Okay. Well, we'll check in with the Crowdcast team.
So as I was saying, years at SDSU as a prof, years doing real live projects in the real world for technology companies and financial institutions and government agencies and community colleges, places like that. Lots of emphasis on work with my graduate students and former graduate students in practicum experiences, field experiences. I'm a believer. Let's see, what else would I said I wrote books. Mm-hmm. I had absolutely nothing to complain about, although I could complain about this person or that heat wave, but mostly I was blessed, and now I'm not 100% retired, but mostly retired. I do the occasional project or speech here or there.
Nice.
And I travel. I'll give you an example of travel. And so I went to Morocco early October, my partner and I, and day one, morning one, took a walk in Casablanca. What could be more romantic than Casablanca? And I tripped and I fell and I fractured my knee in a couple of places, patella and distal femur, if you like details. And so I had to fly home and have surgery. And so for 3 months, I've been waiting for it to heal. And now it's mostly healed, but of course, impaired. So I'm limping about, although you'll not be able to tell.
Your chair dancing was totally on par.
Oh, I just chair dance forever.
Right on point.
No trace of a limp at all in your chair dancing.
Right. I think I could even dance a little bit, but it hurts. You know,
Of all the gin
aquatic-
joints in all the world, she had to fall down in mine.
Right, exactly. Anyway, so that's my story. That's my background, and
Here we are today.
Yeah, we could kick it off a little bit and maybe just talk a little bit of shop while we have you here. And just because you've been around the block in our industry a few times, and some things have changed probably since you started back in the day. That's we always have to throw that in. What's something I see a lot going around, or something that I think a lot too, is like, when, so much seems to change, but yet so much stays the same. Has there been anything that kind of, hits you as ringing true in that sense?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Let me start with how it all stays the same. We are still aggravated by the lack of transfer, by the failure of supervisors to coach and follow up, by the greatest programs not necessarily being systems and not transferring into the real world. I think there's still skepticism that surrounds us. And for those of us who've been involved with technologies since the technologies were, multimedia slideshows, goddess help us. They were terrible then. But we have much better technology today. And yet, look what happened during the pandemic. I mean, it's a failure for the system, of course, but it's also a failure for us. Mm-hmm. Teachers had no clue.
Yeah, sorely unprepared.
Districts had no clue. And I mean, you could say they didn't have enough technology, but I think it's much more that they didn't have enough wherewithal. They didn't have enough strategy. They didn't, they thought that what teachers had to do was transfer the teacher experience, to Zoom. Oh my God. 6-year-olds listening to Zoom for minute upon minute upon hour upon hour. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They didn't learn? I'm shocked and speechless. I mean, the whole difference between synchronicity and asynchronicity is lost on the universe. So, I mean, there's a lot that's still the same. At the same time, what happened? Light bulb Joe wants to know what happened in the pandemic. Well, yeah, there you go. She got it. I eventually explained myself. It took me a little bit to get there. But yeah, during the pandemic, schools closed. Maybe not where you are, but I can tell you they closed here, and they closed in LA, and they closed in San Francisco, closed in New York City. And teachers had to deliver via technology. Yeah. Oh, what a disaster. And it also gave parents line of sight into what goes on in education. And I'm not talking about the technology part of it. I'm talking about this is how they teach whatever. Yeah. Oh my, that created much more pushback and involvement and engagement from parents. They remembered their role, which might have really been the way to start this whole thing. We're going to have to shift to more technology. What's going to be the role of the teacher? What's going to be the role of the parents? Let's redesign this. Let's get our hands on some good software, and so on and so forth, as opposed to fourth graders in Zoom forever, or
adults can't focus for that long on a Zoom call, and we expected our kids to.
And these weren't even effective Zoom calls. These are horrible content dumps. And parents walked by and they saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Harry Lesage. I don't know you, but I think you're right. Teachers are already overtaxed. This is asking them to do this.
Yeah. And so quickly too. Like here, we want you to. You've been doing it one way for so long. All of a sudden, now we want you to become technology experts and immediately spin yourself up on this tool. And oh, by the way, change the way you teach to be effective.
Totally change. I mean, the instructional strategies had to change, and they didn't.
Yeah.
It was one-way dump. Mm-hmm. I mean, they did all these studies of kids who were paying absolutely no attention. It's unbelievable. And how did the students, how did the teachers endure it?
Yeah.
I mean, most teachers want to be successful. And so for our field, I think obviously it's certainly not mostly on us, but it is somewhat on us. It did not show what we can do.
Yeah, sadly, right? And it's not like we haven't had a few decades or so to be able to show the world what it is instructional design can do and what technology can do and what good instruction looks like.
And how you have to change the roles. How counselors and principals and teachers and parents and students all have different roles in the new system. Yeah. Right? I mean, it wasn't going to work. I mean, they needed to use the computers for what the computers do well. They need to use the teachers for what the teachers do well. Even if maybe I'm thinking San Diego, but bring the kids together outdoors. I was over in Balboa Park in the middle of the pandemic, and all these choruses were outside on hills, spread apart, 6-7 feet apart, practicing their singing. Lovely, of course. Now, I maybe can't do that in Ottawa, but
not for 6 months of the year.
6 months
7 months.
A year. Hey, 6 months is better than 0.
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah. School boards. That's another one. Right. So,
yeah. It's
see that Dana Mode. I agree with you. Yeah. Okay, so we've now excoriated everybody.
What a great way to start. That's exactly how we love the conversation to go.
Yeah. So that's what's the same. What is better? I think we have some. I was looking at a piece that Will Thalheimer did about data on effective training, and some studies by the old study by Salas and the newer studies by Garavan et al. So I think we have data that we can share with people. But the problem is, CEOs and COOs and line leaders, heads of sales, heads of manufacturing, heads of compliance, do not want to read those studies. Nobody really wants to read those studies. They don't. What they've got, what we need to do is to show actual impact, value delivered, increased sales, delighted customers, return business, fewer callbacks, but whatever the metrics are that matter in your organization, increased enrollments. It doesn't really matter what it is. Increased use of the online platforms, the content systems, proper use of it at the moment of need, when the time occurs, an engaged workforce that believes they're learning, salespeople who believe if we're rolling out new products that we're going to get a wraparound experience. Yes, we'll have some coaching and some classes, and we'll have some performance support tools that'll help us answer questions and determine the readiness of customers for different aspects of the product. We can't just think about things can't think about what we're going to do. We have to think about what it's going to do to those people.
Right.
and how they're going to be better for it.
Yeah. We're
It's
still,
not our show. It's the audience's reaction and the changes they make.
yeah, we're still an industry.
Ecosystem, I guess.
So many of us in this space, we're still very much focused on, content, right? Let's and the simple metrics of bums in seats or completions, maybe some pass scores to say that, oh, look, people learned or what have you. And we're still in a field. I was going to say an industry, but let's maybe talk about it as a field where so many of us come into it, sideways. We learn by apprenticeship from the folks around us, etc. So there's still so much work to be done to just even get people who are starting in the field to a baseline to be able to even think about those things that you're discussing, which is actually about measuring impact on bottom line, reduction of risk, any of those other things that really should be our goal. We're still so much in a model, too often anyway, of here's information and we're going to push it at you.
Right.
Yeah.
How much, and how much effort can we exert? How many classes did we roll out? Not what the heck difference did it make to the problems that resonate for people in the field? And I mean, that's where you got to start. It's a needs analysis question. And then why do they have those problems? Yeah, if it's new stuff, of course, there's going to be some information and some training and some coaching. And distributed is better than single shot experiences, of course. But I think most of the people, certainly people who are sitting up here with us today, they know that.
Mm-hmm.
They know that.
Yeah.
Their biggest challenges are getting partnerships going with the line, insinuating the right messages to wrap around people, things that they use at the moment of need, like Sidekick performance support that helps them, fix an engine, install this, repair a whatever. I was looking at a job aid, a Keebler's cookie job aid, a Sidekick. And basically it shows you, I swear there's a picture of this, of how to dip a Keebler cookie into a glass of milk.
Nice.
Like that. That's a Sidekick. Versus the other kinds of performance support, which we shouldn't forget, which are like planner kinds of performance support. Am I ready to get married? Is this the right person for me? Is this a good candidate for the product I want to sell? I want to use some business examples too. But like that, did this work? Was I successful? Here's a set of guidelines or checklist. Nobody needs to memorize 11 items on a checklist. Give it to them. And that's a form of performance support. I want to know if my document, my executive summary, meets the standards and is ready to zip out and go. Okay, it needs to have these 11 things. You don't have to memorize that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if I were developing a how to do executive summaries program, it's certain that would be part of it. I would give them tons of good examples. I would have them identify errors. Then I want to give them, am I ready to, I would give them a planner performance part. Am I ready to do this executive summary? Do I have all the information gathered? Do I know for whom I'm writing it? And then a Sidekick performance support, something that helps me fill it in, put it all together. And then planner, which has me look back and make sure all the pieces and parts are ready to go. Zip, gone. So it's that blend. It's all those things put together. I did several studies of assessment, to your point, Chris, about evaluations and all, of assessments in huge companies where we looked at, learning organizations for these multinational companies. How are they doing? Probably looked at 3 or 4 of them over the course of my career. How are they doing on the subject of evaluation of the impact of learning? And the results were grim for the most part. Flap sheets, bodies in seats, not even metricing the use of various content systems, performance support. Impact on the things that got them going in the first place, which was errors or callbacks or sales or whatever. So Yeah, we could just ask Chat GPT to write the executive summary, huh?
Yeah, well, apparently you can these days, which is really strange, and I guess that's the latest shiny object for everybody in our industry. But I don't know if we want to go there.
I don't know enough about it to go there, although I have read, of course, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and a million other people on this subject. And I've looked at the examples where Judy Blume couldn't tell whether it had been written by whatever it was, a fifth grader, or had been written by Chat GPT. Judy Blume, the kids writer.
Yeah.
My nieces loved Judy Blume.
Yeah.
And she couldn't tell, and neither could a fifth grade teacher. And they got it wrong mostly. Listen, look, I'm listening. Anne Akamatsu, elves use job aids, right, to deliver to the children. I hope so. They should. Very important. Hey, who doesn't keep a list of what kids want or mention that they want? It's a form of a job aid.
For sure.
Who could remember all that? Yeah, I could remember. So I don't know about Chat GPT and writing a good executive summary, but I'd say it'd probably be a pretty good start. And where we would come in, humans, would be in tailoring it to the people who can read that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember doing a project for the government, which wasn't about executive summaries, but it was about reports, writing reports, not an emphasis on the writing, but on the reading of the report, so they would be useful. And what we found was that there wasn't enough concentration on who was going to get the report and what they needed to do with it, right? Much more concentration, like us. They weren't so different from us. We're writers in some ways. Yeah. And of course, that was with my students, that was always a key variable. Good writer, going to be probably good instructional designer, instructional technologist. Why? Because good writer is audience focused. Good instructional designer is audience and context focused. What's there? What's coming at them? What do they have to use? So, yeah, I think this is something. Everybody's talking about Chat GPT. I think that, what's the answer? We got to try it.
Right.
Give it a go. I'd be very interested in hearing from you about what's working. Tell me I'm interested in hearing about how it's going in your work.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I want to know.
There you go. Well, we're gonna do at least one episode on it here coming up, but I'm certain this year we're going to probably do a lot more than just one. So it'll be probably a hot topic all of 2023.
Well, one thing we know. Buffering again.
Oh, darn it.
Something's up with Crowdcast today.
We have too many people on. We're breaking it.
We broke the system. I'm sorry, folks.
That's all right. It's all right.
I don't think it's up. If it had been yesterday morning, we were having such a storm, I would have said it was the water affecting. We had a leak in a closet. Nasty business. Crowdcast is having issues.
Yeah, it's probably my internet.
Smart dude here.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you asked what was good. There's a lot good. The technology is yummy. People are living their lives using mobile devices to do so many things for them. And if I were working in an organization today, whether it was a hospital, a community college, or IBM, I'd be thinking, how can I add? Do not offer anything that doesn't include. If you're doing a class, great, but it's got to include the use of this afterwards for distributed practice, for knowledge of results, for community, and it's got to include the bloody supervisor. Conversations with the supervisor. I remember a really good pharmaceutical company that I worked with, and they said, we are not allowed to do sales training unless we have a role built in afterwards, going on into time for the supervisors. And they gave them materials to use for conversations, cases, and problems.
Nice.
Did it work? I think it did. That was nice. Yes, that was nice. So it's what we need to do today too. Nothing has changed in that regard.
I remember just mentioning mobile learning, and I saw a name in as one of our attendees today, and is Judy Brown. Is it
She's
Judy?
here. I saw. Yes, Judy.
Is Judy?
Judy.
Is it the same Judy Brown, or is this?
You bet it is.
Yo, Judy, I love you. So glad you're here. Judy from Wisconsin, right?
Judy's from Wisconsin, but she goes other places too.
Oh yeah. That's where she was teaching at the time, I think. Anyway, sorry. Hate to sidetrack, but the two conversations and just in my brain just melded together so nicely. I just had to give her a shout out
here. Betsy Bruce is here. Antonia Chan is here. Who else is here that I know from? Andy McGuire's here from Forever.
Andy, yeah. Wow. Yeah. A lot of names I haven't seen in a long time, but I'm glad you're all here.
No, I dragged them out.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. Hey, I also, somebody mentioned, and I just happened to put it in the description, and then somebody asked if we were going to talk about it. So I might as well bring it up. You gave a great keynote at an event that I put on in San Diego a few years back on happiness. And it was so good. And we don't have to talk about that specifically, but I just loved the idea of, who owns a happiness? Is it our responsibility? Is it, in the corporate workplace? And how do we, make those, how do we become a part of that? Or is it something we should even care about? Is it just silly?
I think that's a really good question, Brent. Is it ours? And of course it's not totally ours, and maybe it's not mostly ours, but it is in part ours. And what it makes me think about when you've been really happy in your life, things that gave you pleasure. And one of the things that gives pleasure is learning something. All right. I have a friend who tackled Spanish, and she dragged her son along on this with her. She was a colleague of mine at the university, and she dragged her son along in that endeavor. It was a wonderful thing for them together every summer to go down to Mexico and study. And of course, it's been great for his career. And plus there was happiness that gave him joy. And I think about little things, learning to tap dance badly. Anything you learning about a new topic. I've been studying up on Ukraine. I had some prejudice against Ukraine, from family history and being chased from village to village and shtetl to shtetl. My family had to escape. So I had to study. And it's interesting and it's joyous to learn something. So number one, we're about learning, and we're about helping people feel growth. So that means we're engaged with providing them with growth opportunities, encouraging them to be growthful and to self-assess and to pick goals and to provide a rich menu of ways for them to work-related grow and other ways grow, ready for retirement. Marvelous performance support tools in that regard. So anyway, so I do think it's on our plate, not only on our plate, but on our plate. The other thing I would say about it is how that there are two pieces. I just actually saw a study on this maybe 3 days ago. Number one thing that makes people happy as they go through life, relationships. What can we do about that? How can we form groups within our organizations? How can we get them engaged with each other in meaningful ways? So relationships, that's the number one thing. So at work, it's relationships, and of course, outside work. And the other factor is purpose. What I do has meaning, right? It matters. I repair products. Yesterday, we had rain, and so we had a leak. So we called the guy who put in a new roof in 2019, and he immediately came out. So already he is a blessed being. And, really, he came out the next day at 7:30 in the morning because because of my broken knee. I had to go to aquatic physical therapy, and my partner had to deal with it. So we had a million things trying to. Oh, I had a meeting with you, Brent, to practice crowdcast. So a million things going on, and with a broken leg. And this guy is a roofer. And he has to learn new technologies, new products, and he was talking about his stuff that he does. And that's good. I mean, if I had a bunch of roofers, and I have a friend who's a CFO for a company that does cleaning. They clean industrial buildings all over the world. There's so much involved in all that. Think about it. And how do you help those people? The first thing I'd be helping them is to get into community college, right? So they can develop the next set of possibilities. That's going to be a happier workforce. It's going to be a better workforce.
Yeah.
And how can you tell them things? How can they become the super? I did a lot of work with Quick Food. As used to call it fast food, now Quick Food. I don't know why that's better, but Quick Food. And over the years, and with Quick Food, one of the key things is how do you how do they grow on the job? And then how do they grow to be the assistant store manager and the store manager and the regional? And I met amazing people without college degrees who are now regional managers who are doing amazingly well on difficult tasks. It ain't easy to manage, to elevate performance in those stores.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the other things that about happiness I've seen recently a few times floating through my feeds, the effect that helping others has on our own happiness, which led me to think, you know what, that's probably a lot of why so many of us in our space actually, also derive value and happiness from our work, because we're the people who do get to help other people. That's our job. So.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Do we get to put that on our annual report with the company?
If you write it a certain way, get help from Chat GPT. No, I think you could write this up in a way that would be compelling.
Yeah,
I can see how I could write it up in a way that would be compelling.
It'd be a whole different kind of take on a smile sheet, the happiness sheet.
Oh, and look at, well, if you want to talk about helping other people, okay, you've been to the rollout of the new software, but other people in your organization haven't been. How are you going to share it with them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They all have questions about it. What are you going to help people become coaches of other people? I was working on a little bit of work yesterday, believe it or not. And I was thinking about coaching again. I had done, I don't know how many coaching projects, adding technology to coaching systems. And so what's coaching? It's 3 things: training people, some presentation, some requests for performance, some assessment, knowledge of results, training. It is. If you're coaching somebody, you want to help them be a better, whatever, diagnostician. Integration. Help them go where the other oncologists go for lunch once a month, or where the other real estate professionals go once a month. Integration into what we who do this do. And there was a study at Xerox, a guy named Orr, I think is his name. He found that even though the materials, this is years back, weren't up to date, right? The how to do this and the how to do that for the Xerox repair folks weren't up to date. They were managing to get it right somehow. And what they discovered is they had breakfasts together. And that's where they corrected each other and kept each other up to date, even though they hadn't updated the materials. I think that's pretty nifty. So training, integration, breakfast with the other repair guys and gals, and motivation. How do you keep people doing the work? Even if you're an oncologist, so many of the people you work with die. Or you're a real estate person and you don't get the listings for a couple of weeks. Train, integrate, motivate. That's what a coach does. It's not just one of those things. It's all 3 of those things. And how do we add technology to that? Which I think, people are writing about it here in our chat.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I've loved so much about these technologies, especially like this, like being introduced to Crowdcast, and before Crowdcast, it was a different app that I was using before. And to be able to do this in the early days, I would go live every single morning with no plan, nothing at all. And I would just wait for people to show up in the chat, and we would just have conversations. And it was my way of basically having water cooler conversations with my community of peers and colleagues. And everybody would ask me, how do you do that? How do you do a live stream every single day? And because I think in the back of their mind, it's like, oh, this has to be a production. It has to be planned. It has to be all this work. And I'm like, no, the technology's there for us to just hang out. It's kind of it's been the cycle. It's kind of how we got here to Idiotic, the same way. It's like trying to keep that same vibe of just let's be some peers hanging out, sharing with each other in the chat, have a guest on, and have some fun. Try to bring some happiness to folks.
Indeed. That's why I'm interested in happiness, because I want to be happy.
Right. Well, I think that's a great point, because I think most people in our industry love to learn also. So it's, we love to help other people learn because we like to learn. Every time you get a new project, it's a new topic that you get to learn about. And it's like, oh yeah, I get to learn about something new. And it's always fascinating, because you got to dig deep,
it's not just topics, it's audiences.
Oh yeah, people.
Switch audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly it was grad students, but it was also salespeople and, in a pharma industry, but also salespeople in a technology industry. And so then you switch content to repair, and then you switch to senior citizens. And really real community college instructors, blah, blah, very interesting. And if you get into them, of course, that's going to help you be good at the work. If you give a hoot.
Yeah, it's important to give a hoot. That's what I always say.
Also, don't pollute. That's also important.
No, definitely don't pollute. For sure.
In the metaphorical sense of what we do, don't give people bad information. Don't give people bad experiences.
Yeah, and or don't even give it to them in the wrong context. Speaking of context, right? Because that doesn't seem to work too well either.
Nope, I agree. Right. Littler bits, contextualized, where the need emerges, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
stuff.
That's where performance support, where you started off in the early days, and then where it's at today. And is today's performance support any different from yesterday's performance support, or same?
Oh, I do. I think it's quite a bit better. Performance support was very procedural, very sidekick oriented. How to tie a bandana, all the different ways you can tie a bandana, recipes, cook.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Nothing wrong with that. But now we have many more planner kinds of performance support where you use them to, again, look at your executive summary. Does it have all the necessary parts? Am I ready to marry this person? Should I take out this loan? Am I qualified? We should be using that kind of performance support to qualify people into any kind of development experiences. That's where that's how often are we working with a group and they're not ready, or they're too advanced, or it just doesn't match.
Yeah, sending out that, what would it be, a questionnaire of sorts, or some sort of assessment ahead of time? What would pre-test to see if they're ready?
I worked in organizations where they did not allow pre-tests. They didn't allow post-tests. They didn't allow pre-tests. No, this is not uncommon, right, out there? But self-assessments. Are these the questions you're dealing with? Can you answer this question? It's much more self-oriented and readiness-oriented.
Gotcha.
That's a performance support tool, and it helps. You want to go to this module, not not that module, because you'll suffer failure, and failure reduces confidence, and confidence is critical to motivation. That's what happened to the teachers during the pandemic. They weren't having success experiences. They didn't have those kids that smiled at them. Didn't, but mostly I think kids do, I hope. And so if you're having failure experiences every day and you know you're shouting into the Grand Canyon, oh my God, no wonder they've had teacher dropout issues, huge teacher dropout issues.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes for sure. But I think that might be a little bit outside of my realm of responsibility.
Yeah, mine too.
My kids have all aged out of the systems, so I don't worry about it so much anymore.
Well, maybe you should, however. Maybe we all should.
Yeah.
I worry about it. I see the kids. There's an elementary school 1 block away from my house. Very close. And the little kid, the young kids, they're so bright-faced and so beautiful. Really, their eyes are, and I don't see it so much when they hit middle school. Now I don't have a middle school right here, but I don't think it. They're not tuned in the way they are when they go into ready, and then they're not so ready. So,
yeah.
And what about our people? What happens when you hire new consultants at a place like a PwC or a Deloitte, and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed?
Yeah,
right. We keep them bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. How do we do that? And that's what you want, obviously. Consultants have got to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Got to be motivated every day.
Yeah.
No Eeyores allowed.
If you're a consultant, oh yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, look, somebody's worrying about their grandkids. Yeah. Good. Of course you do.
Yeah. I'm worried about getting grandkids, but that's a whole nother different podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I understand. That could concern you. Right. Indeed.
At some
that
point.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
I wish we had some little ones right here in San Diego. That would be lovely.
Oh,
just
man.
Lovely.
Right. Well, boy.
Oh, well.
Allison, this has been such a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being our first guest for 2023.
2023. How do you like them apples? How did it happen?
I know, eh?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure being here with you. It wasn't great getting up at 5:45 this morning, but I've promised myself a little nap this afternoon.
Hey, happiness.
I think it'll be okay. I have a Labradoodle sitting here at my feet, and she and I are going to nap this afternoon.
Get a little snuggle time in. It'll be good.
I'll get some snuggle time with my Labradoodle.
Allison,
sure.
Thanks so much for joining us here. You've pasted in your contact info a couple of times, but go ahead and paste
I'll do it again.
Yeah.
It's cheap.
It and a repetitive, emphasis. So.
That's right. Yeah. Well, you have to repeat things 3 times in order for people to get it. So maybe do it again really fast.
Yeah. No kidding. Of course, folks, Idiotic, we're so glad to be back again for 2023. But it all comes together because of Domino Learning Systems, our sponsors, and the folks that Brent and I work for. And I'm just looking in my Word doc here to find my paste-in link. There it is. Oh
there it is.
We're rusty. How can you come back from holidays and you're relearning everything, right?
I know. It's good.
We've got a link in the chat there back to the Domino website if you're interested in learning more.
Or hit us up on the LinkedIn group. Here's a link for you. Join us there and we can have more conversations about what's going on.
There's the theme song. Let's dance on out, gang. Hope your 2023 is going to be awesome. You're all rock stars already. We'll see you next week.
Indeed. And we also have a lot of great new guests coming up. So check out idiodc.com and find out all of the other stuff coming at you. We'll see you on Wednesday mornings. Bye, Allison. Thank you.